Hi there. Took a day off. Now I'm all fresh again, I guess. Anyway, this journal is from February 4th. First one of that day, Mayan day, 8th storm. Making joyful messes, age of serendipity, weeding out beliefs. And so here I am among the rhubarb or whatever it is. Okay. Don't be afraid to make a mess of things. What are these things, anyway, that they deserve to have all this respect and to be in such perfect order? Is their order really perfect? Can we not step back and see that these are but the conventions of society and of mind? To what do we owe respect? There's something to ponder. To what do you give devotion? You may not use such a word, but look at your life. What do you tend to bow down to give much respect? What have you elevated above yourself? In other words, also, to what have you given your power away? And more importantly, are you ready to step forward and reclaim it? Now, relax. Mostly, to begin with, we're not speaking of making public messes. We're talking about your own interior life more than anything. People give such respect to the 3D world supposedly existing somewhere out there, outside of the self. That's a lie, and that's utter nonsense, but we don't see it yet. So it's fine to go on like we do for a bit longer. There's no race here. What is ultimately real, though, has nothing at all to do with materiality, with 3D and anything touchable. Those are the least real of all that we deal with, but we've been hypnotized and manipulated into seeing things otherwise than they really are. That's what is at issue here. For instance, did you notice at the very start of this how you may have pulled back internally from this idea of making some sort of mess and doing it publicly? Did you feel the very quick momentary pullback from that? Many did, but fewer than that are aware of it. And as usual, what we're aware of tracks back to our particular interior garden of belief. Anyway, perhaps you've seen enough in your own life, most of us have, to at least have the sense that maybe things in the 3D world are a bit upside down and backwards. Somehow they're often the mirror image, the reverse of something that's true. We sense this, but can't quite get a handle on it yet, get sufficient clarity to pin it down to something mind can grapple with. Well, let's not worry about that, for all fairly soon see, for all will fairly soon see, mind itself is the ultimate unreality. I get closer to knowing, to owning, to realizing with Papa G that in reality, nothing ever happened. Now, that even includes the whole creation. I know, that sounds terribly way out the first time we encounter it. Quite bizarre. Well, that's okay. Just leave room for it. Don't limit yourself in any way. That's why I recommend we all adopt the belief that anything, literally anything, is possible. That one will dredge up and help us clear away many old, outdated beliefs. The work we do in our interior garden is some of the most solid we'll ever accomplish. Heck, just becoming aware of this garden and looking into what's planted there, that's a big step, one that most people haven't a clue about. They go through their days and nights unknowingly driven and controlled very much based on their beliefs. This not knowing makes us vulnerable when there's no need for that. In reality, in the ultimate reality of our oneness, everyone knows everything. We've just decided, for very good quote-unquote reasons, to keep much of it hidden from our conscious mind. That's how we played the game, played our parts in the grand drama. Can you see that? That's how 3D works. As divinities who know simply everything, what fun would it be having a part in a play where the very next words out of anyone's mouth were totally known to you? Now, how much fun would that be? I know that's the case for the actors on any stage, but do remember, the magic they're creating is for the audience, not for them. Their knowing takes much of the magic out of things. Do you see this? To take that one farther, as it turns out, many of the finest actors are those who can enter so deeply into the present moment, into the character, leaving all else outside of it, that they can deliver their lines as if actually happening live, not something scripted at all. Oh, and just a few lines for the actors and actresses among us. Please know that more and more of us are going telepathic each day, becoming aware of that. Know that your thoughts are also somehow captured on film and that they're distracting. You'd do well to concentrate more firmly on your lines and in your character. I, for one, can hardly watch low-quality acting anymore. Now, of course, we're all telepathic, just most of us without knowing it. What else is it that's made those like Charlton Heston, as one example, so very great? So many of those we call great today are ones who were so now focused as to cut out all mental chatter, and that showed up in their acting. We do pick these things up when actors are distracted or looking into the lights or for cues or just anything. We read that. It's just that more and more of us are now doing so consciously. So, a word to the wise, to the next great actors of the new day. Now, back to making a mess. And hey, consider the great actors we were just speaking of. They made plenty of messes overall, the great ones. When we follow our inner guidance, we won't always color within the lines. We'll not only color outside of them, we'll even make new lines. We simply refuse to be bound or controlled by anything outside of our own guidance. The background noise is Puppy and Kitty learning to play. Okay, now for those in mind, this may conjure up pictures of absolute chaos, everyone going every which way, running into one another and making a real mess. Back into heart with you, please, where you'll see that it's into the one, into the whole that we are, that we're going. That one, being but one, will not create the chaos that mind envisions. It knows what it's doing. And all interior guidance comes from one and the same source. So all will just magically go together somehow in an age of endless serendipities. Perhaps we'll call it that, the age of serendipity, the age of perfect union and flow. So, again, back to making that mess. Of course, again, speaking inwardly, we're still not going public with our spiritual path here. The messes I suggest we break out of the lines to go about making are those made inwardly. Let's start by questioning the way we think things work. That's right, let's head for our garden of belief. Come on, it's nice down here. By simply looking at things differently, may I suggest radically differently, we'll make some delightful messes. We'll really screw ourselves up for a bit. Well, that may be mind's estimate, but somehow we'll know better. Even when we don't know anything, we'll know this. You see, if you look to the base, the foundation of it, what is a mess? Who decides? From whose perspective is something messy? These are some really good questions to ask, and I think if you'll give it a fair shot, you'll find the same answer every time. Yep, it's mind. Mind is the one sitting there in judgment on things, on anything. So basically, anytime you find yourself judging something, look to mind and question that. Here's a useful tactic for you mess makers out there. Stop believing your mind. Stop believing in mind, and stop believing anything it says or believes. Now, on your Richter scale, this will likely deliver some pretty sizable numbers. It will be a real shakeup. You may not be aware just how tightly in control of your life the mind is. But soon you'll know. Mind is the inner commandant, the inner Gestapo for most of us. Now be in heart to hear this. Mind will refuse. Mind is the one in control of your life. How true is this for you? For the general populace, it's just the way it is. But for you, viewing a journal like this, that's not likely the case. Mind is still likely quite powerful, sure, but no more in total control. Else you couldn't be viewing such things that take gut shots at mind and at mind's control. Do you see? By entering heart or the now moment or whatever you call it when you center down, you can step back far enough from the quote-unquote problem, and there's really no such thing, but that's for another time, to see it more plainly. When we center, we become less identified with the outer persona, with the person, the body, the mind, all that 3D stuff. It's only when we step back this way that perspective clarifies to give us another view. Mind likes things one way, my way. Have you noticed? Mind wants everything neatly arranged, all in good order, and all making sense. There's nothing wrong with this initially. It's just when it gets so carried away and eventually so taken over, as has the mind in today's world, that it takes on the guise of a big problem. This is just an innocent tendency of mind, gone quite out of control. When you correct someone and they respond rather heatedly, that is someone so identified with their mind that they take challenge to an idea or statement of theirs personally. They have, in effect, become the mind in this case. Can you see that? This is getting totally identified with mind. I don't recommend it. The perspective is functional, but way too narrow to be useful on the spiritual path. So let's take 10 paces back. All the surrender, the letting go and giving up that is considered the typical province of the spiritual path, let's take another look at that, and naturally from another perspective. As we step back into heart, or however we conceive it, the view changes significantly. Be sure to keep a keen eye out to distinguish between heart and mind's offering. Learn to discern, to tell them apart. Cuddles, get down. Dadgummit, excuse me, I shall return. Okay, so let's take another look at that naturally from another perspective. As we step back or step into heart, or however we conceive it, the view changes significantly. Be sure to keep a keen eye out to distinguish between heart and mind's offerings. Learn to discern, to tell them apart. This is a prized ability you can hone. We all have it, so just know that. Now, viewed from heart or from center, what is all this about surrendering? Is it really so painful, so terribly hard that only the saints can do it? Is it something we want to run away from? If any of that is true, then step back another few paces. You're still in the mind. That's mind's way of viewing such things. Plus, take a look at the very low marks you give yourself in this. What makes you not a saint? So, from deeper within, we begin to get a whole nother sense of what this letting go stuff is about. Our new angle or perspective shows us what we're doing is letting go of all that gets in our way. We're just cleaning up, really. It's been made into a big deal by the mind, perhaps to keep us away from the whole idea of it. Sacrificial saints don't make such good little consumers, do they? Things that make you go, Whereas viewed this way, the surrender is only of things so totally in the way of our spirit, our upward path, as to be holding us back. Well, how hard is it to let that go, I ask you? Now there's another useful angle on things we could use here. Consider your life and how things have been going of late. I'd say for the past 12 months or so, but definitely 12 weeks. Now, of all the things that somehow got shoved to the side in that time, how many of them did you actually discard consciously? How many of those choices did you make for yourself? How many of those discards just seemed to happen somehow when you weren't looking? Have you noticed that? How many of your tastes have changed recently? And how much conscious intent was there in that? Not very much would be my guess. That's how it's been for me anyway. How about you? Do you sometimes just find yourself being danced, as it were, without even knowing that? Okay, good. Now stay in heart. Keep looking at this from there and not from the head. And try this out. Could this activity not be your own higher self coming down and taking up residence there where you are? Let that soak in. I know that for many of you, this has already come to you and you've pondered it. Maybe you didn't let it come too close, though. Maybe you're still clinging in some ways to an old idea of who and what you are, what your capabilities are, your detriments or deficits, and all of that. As you can see, one need not stray very far at all from the garden of belief to make a real difference in one's life. We reap what we sow, even when others did the sowing for us, as in our inner programming, thanks to all the ignorance rampant in our world in the last age. Our gardens are chock full of crap, my friends. No, wait, crap would be very good for them. Rather, they're just full of some terrible overgrown weeds. So, heads up, everyone. Get the gardening gloves out and have them at the ready. The gardener's best friend is the watch and observe strategy. Just quiet viewing of everything that goes down in your life. Keep those eyes inward focus. That's if you truly want success with this. The big thing to watch for is how you torpedo yourself, how you trip yourself up. Have you ever caught yourself doing this? Many of us seem somehow allergic to success, for as soon as it draws within reach, we find some way to smash it or trash it. We act seemingly as our own worst enemy, without understanding it all. That's why it's good to even be able to see this. It means you've already done some good weeding, for many beliefs keep this sort of tendency very well hidden. Just keep watch, that's all. Pull the weeds of the old and useless beliefs when you notice them, sure, but don't do anything else. And don't have any expectations above all. Those two will torpedo your work. How and why? Well, just for starters, all expectations are things of mind. And second, they partake of time, and not the now moment either. Should be enough said. Vision. It's in the vision itself that we win here. It's the seeing we're about, not the doing. All that doing was false and will be shown to be that soon enough. Meanwhile, just cease and desist from it. Watching is all you need do now. Watch, listen, and learn. You're being tutored from inside, but you've not been still enough to even hear it. By simply backing off from all that action stuff, you can learn. How will it happen? How does any inner guidance occur? How does it feel to have an intuition about something? Maybe something like that. It will be specific, unique to you and your path, so just be open, quiet and open. That's enough. You'll just know.